Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my Tigers 2021 season review. As with all of these reviews, I'm just going to go through a couple of stats, some certain individuals from each team, and then just my overall thoughts on their season. Alright, so starting off with the stats, 8 wins, 1,557 metres for, 1,672 metres conceded per game, 87 tries, 127 conceded, and then 306 offloads is the big one for me. If you are getting that many offloads in a game, you should be not only scoring more tries, but also just in general getting more meters off the back of it. Because realistically, when you think of offloads, majority of the time when an offload happens in rugby league, there's 2 or 3 defenders in the tackle, and if you get that offload, there's numbers somewhere, there's an overlap somewhere, and the fact that they just have not, played off the back of that is insane to me. It's crazy that they wouldn't have looked at that stat for themselves each game and said, hey, we're getting a lot of offloads. Maybe we should start training how to just play off the back of offloads, sort of thing. Second most offloads in the league. That's an insane. That's insane considering they came 14th, 13th, 13th. Now that's great. And then also the fact that they came 13th is actually really surprising. They're 10th. What is it, for the past 6 years or something like that, they have finished 10th. That is their position. So the fact that they haven't gotten there this year, that is actually really telling. You'd think if you've been consistently in 10th for so long, you'd think that the only way is up because you're consistent enough, they've been consistent enough not to be struggling that badly, but they also haven't been good enough to go up a level. So you got to sit there and wonder, why haven't they gone up that level? And I think it's a factor of many things, which has to do with a couple of individuals that we'll talk about now, starting with their coach, Michael Maguire, Madge. I don't think he's a good coach for them. I don't think he's a good fit. So I think Maguire, when he has a good team, he can make them thrive. He won the grand final with the Rabbitohs in 2014, was it? 2013? I can't remember. I think it was 2014. He won the grand final with them. All right, but, that was a stacked side. That was a good team. Right, and that's the thing with Madge. He has a good vision, he has good philosophies, he has good structures in place, but all of that for him is very dependent on the players he has. I don't think he's very versatile in his coaching, which I think is what's been his biggest letdown at the Tigers. He has his style, he has his idea of how he wants the game to play, but obviously he doesn't have the players at the Tigers to match that. And that can be for a number of reasons, just for contract's sake, maybe the players Maguire wants to go for, the club just can't afford. Maybe the club just don't think they're Tigers players or some garbage like that. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think Maguire is the coach for the Tigers. I think he needs to leave and go somewhere else, right? Because he's clearly just not getting the support at the Tigers. If they truly backed him, then they'd give him the opportunity to bring in players that that he wants to play with and all that sort of stuff. And then the big sort of example of this is the next person I'm going to talk about, Luke Brooks. Right? For the past 4 or 5 years, I think it's longer than that actually. I think he's been playing for 12 years and he hasn't made the finals in 10 of them or something like that. The Tigers are adamant that Luke Brooks is the man. It's just for all we know, behind the scenes, Maguire could have said, look, Brooks doesn't suit my style. We need to shift him on and get someone else that does, or just something like that, for example. And I think just the Tigers in general are just being run like garbage, and I think Luke Brooks is the perfect example of that. I can't think of any other team where if a player is consistently at the level or so that Luke Brooks has been at, that player has stayed at the club. I can't think of another team that's done that. Right? And I don't think that's all Brooks's fault. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's all his fault. I think he is a good, he's a good player. He has shown that when he gets on a roll, so to speak, he can perform. But I just think the biggest problem for Brooks is he's not a halfback. I think he's a 5'8". He's got a decent kicking game on him. He's got a decent passing game on him. But what Luke Brooks is best at is running. Get him the ball on the outer edge, let him take on his man, and then, shift it onto the people outside him. But for some reason at the Tigers, that's not what they want him to do. They want him to be like, no, you're Cooper Cronk. You're our Cooper Cronk. You're going to stand there, organise people, and just kick. It's like, that's not what he is. That's not what he does. Right? In his debut season, he had, some of the most run meters of a half that year or something ridiculous. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but, it was something like he ran the ball a lot in his debut season, and he was fantastic in his debut season. But, since then, they're like, no. You're just a team organiser now. And it's not what he is. So don't get me wrong, I definitely think Brooks obviously has to take some of the blame. If the team is adamant that he's going to be that organiser, then he needs to sort of look at himself and go, okay, if that's what they want me to be, I need to learn how to do it and execute on it. That's what professional athletes do. When they're put in a role, they have to go, okay, this is my role, I'm going to excel at it. But, obviously Luke Brooks hasn't done that. But then again, at the same time, when you have a player that has a certain play style, that play style 9 times out of 10 is what got them into the NRL. So trying to force them to do something completely different is just idiotic. So when it comes to Luke Brooks, there's issues on both sides. Luke Brooks, I think he needs to, take a look at himself and sort of be that leader and be that organizer that the Tigers clearly want him to be. But then at the same time, I also think the Tigers need to look at themselves and say, okay, clearly this isn't him. Let's bring in someone to do that and put him in at 5'8", and let him play his game. But that's the Tigers for you. They make weird decisions, like getting rid of Benji. Why would they get rid of Benji? Oh, he's too old. Oh, well, you know what? That old fella made a grand final while you guys are sitting in the 13th. But that's a topic for another day. All right. Next person I want to talk about is Adam Doueihi. He's a fantastic player. But the problem for him is he's too versatile. You can chuck Doueihi in at fullback, he'll do a job for you. You can chuck him in at 5'8", he'll do a job for you. Chuck him in. I reckon he could do a job at halfback. You chuck him in a centre, he can do a job for you. And that's his downfall. I talked about this with Torpany in my Bulldogs review, where versatility in the NRL can kill you, because instead of being put into your position and just training in that position and mastering it, you're chopped and changed, you're chucked around everywhere, and it can just it can stunt your development. I hope that doesn't happen to Doueihi. I think if he's to stay at the Tigers, I think he needs to play 5'8", because I think in that team he's shown he's a leader. The players clearly look up to him, so I think he needs to be playing 5'8". Whether they do that, who knows? Only time will tell. But yeah, he's definitely got those leadership qualities. He's got the ability. He's got a decent kicking game on him for someone that, for as far as I'm aware, never played in the halves when he was younger. I'm pretty sure he was a fullback centre when he was younger and in the younger developing, youth and all that sort of stuff like that. So, he's got a good kicking game on him. Obviously he's a leader in that team. He's vocal. He's a great player. But, yeah, I don't know. Versatility might kill him unless the Tigers just, pick and stick, which is what they need to do. They need to just pick a position for him and say, this is your position. We're going to develop you here. We're going to build around you here. But whether they do that again, only time will tell. All right, the next player is Dane Laurie. He is a talent and a half. If he didn't get injured this season, I reckon he could have been on par for Rookie of the Year. He was having in a weak team, in a struggling side, he was a shining, beacon of hope. He was excellent. But then, obviously he got injured and that's unfortunate. But yeah, if the Tigers can keep hold of him and build around him and the likes of Doueihi, if those two can be their linchpins and they can build around them, then, there's no reason why the Tigers can't, climb their way up the ladder, and possibly compete for the top 8 in the next couple of years. But whether they do that again is all a different story, because, the Tigers' board and everything upstairs is horrendous. It's all over the shop. But, again, that's a topic for another day. But yeah, Dane Laurie, fantastic player, fantastic talent. He's got all the ability in the world. It's again, it all just depends if the Tigers build around him properly. All right, and the next is Luciano Leilua. I think if he was at any other club, he would be one of the best second rowers in the comp. He's fantastic. he gets offloads. He runs hard. He's got agility. Like, he's got a bit of footwork. He's got a decent passing game on him. He creates space for everyone around him. Not only that, he can carry 3 or 4 people over the try line from 10 meters out. I think he did that once or twice this season. He is a fantastic player. I think I read that he signed with someone else. I don't know if it was true or not. I can't remember who the team was either, but I think it said that he'd signed with someone for 2023 onwards, which, if that's the case, then good on him, because he's definitely a good enough player where he could be in a premiership competing side. But he's just been, ultimately he's sort of been let down by the rest of his teammates. But yeah, fantastic player, definitely got all the potential in the world. But yeah, I think he just needs to be in a better side to fully, expand his game. All right, and then the last person is David Nofaluma. I really don't know what to think about him, eh? Like, for someone that talks up such a big game, that sort of you watch him when he plays, he's got that sort of ego about him where he thinks he's top dog and all this sort of stuff. And then you watch him play, and it's just you're not as good as you think you are, mate. Like, don't get me wrong, he's a good winger, and he, produces some good moments, but, there's a reason a bigger team hasn't come in for you. There's a reason you're still stuck at the Tigers. Right? And I think that's just his ego. I think he's, I think he thinks he's at the level of Addo Carr, when in reality he's 4 or 5 levels below. It's just how he acts. That's how it seems. He thinks he's king shit, but in reality he's it's all right, cool. You're a good finisher, but then again, in the NRL these days, every winger is a good finisher. So what else do you bring to the table? And I just don't think Nofaluma brings that much else to the table apart from an ego. Right? So if he can clean that ego up, then by all means he could be a fantastic winger. But until he does that, I just think he's average at best, honestly. But that's just my opinion. Other people might think differently. Other people might think he's fantastic. Other people might agree. It's all up for debate. And then so just overall season expectations. Again, expected. I predicted them to finish 12th, I think, 11th or 12th, because that's usually where they finish. They usually finish in that 10th spot sort of thing area, but I thought they'd do a little bit worse, which they did. But yeah, I thought 11th or 12th. Because the past, they haven't made finals in 11 years, I think it is, something like that. So I didn't see it improving, especially just with the players they've got. Like I said before, with Maguire, I don't think he's the guy to bring them forward. I think he's the sort of bloke that he isn't a team builder. He is a team perfecter, I guess you could say. You can give, if you can give Madge a good squad, he can then finalize it and turn it into a finals team. But, the Tigers need a rebuild essentially from the ground up, and I just don't think he's the man to do that. And then the next question is, where do they go from here? Right? Who knows? Like I've said a few times throughout the video, just the whole Tigers system, from the board level all the way down to the team, is just garbage. It's just horrible. You read reports of I've read, not interviews, sorry, but I've read articles and stuff like that. Apparently just stuff on the board level for them is just at an all-time low. There's infighting. There's all these issues. No, excuse me. And just if there's all those issues up there, then it trickles down to the team. I know people say no, just separate the club and the team. They're different things. No, they're not different team. They're not different things, because everything that happens at board level gets sent through to Madge, as the coach, which then goes through to the coaching staff, which then goes down to the team. So it's a trickling effect. And I think until the Tigers board and their I can't remember their CEO's name, the fella that the bloke that thinks he's young and hip when he's not, sort of thing, and tries to act all cool and all that sort of stuff. Until he sorts himself out, the Tigers aren't going to sort themselves out. Just as a club. Where I think next year, I think it's going to be a struggling year for them again. From what I've been reading, that they haven't recruited very well. From just what I've read, from what I remember off the top of my head, they haven't recruited extremely well. So I think next year will be another struggling. I don't think they'll get the spoon, but I definitely think again it'll be maybe a 12th, 13th place finish for them again. just because they haven't recruited well, and I don't think they have the players at the club at the moment to push for a top 8 spot. But again, only time will tell. But yeah, with that, guys, that's my Tigers review. Like I've said with all these, let me know things you think I could do better, things I could add, things I could remove. Let me know if you want the videos to be a bit shorter, be a bit longer. If you want me to talk about more players, less players, more things. I'm happy to do whatever. But yeah, with that said, guys, take it easy. Have a good one.